like I treat it like a performance, like an artist would do. And what I do is I tour around. Now I'm doing it physically and I'm touching, let's say 50 to 100 people per class, but I'm doing a lot of them, but I'm turning them into super fans really quickly because I have an hour of their time. An hour of attention is critical to making someone feel something if you're able to. So I do that, but what we would do is take that and now create an entire media component behind it by basically having like a tour bus where it goes college to college, but instead of just, throwing parties and all this stuff, it's promoting entrepreneurship, promoting, the idea of being unapologetic and like all these things while building a business and getting a ton of free squares. But you make a storyline about going on tour, like, and we tell that story on YouTube. We tell it in a very professional media component of what it looks like to go on tour. And like, there's so many angles that can be told within that. So we're really moving into amplifying the voice by telling more stories, having more resources to tell it, but also at the same time getting better at traditional marketing in terms of like, okay, what do we do in store that can drive sales? Is it demoing? Is it proper promo planning? Is it, merchandising, end caps? Like there's still that component that sounds boring, but actually is still effective that we need to do as we supplement the crazy media side of the business. So media first, but traditional is going to come a lot more into effect as we scale.
I'm Eric Fulwiler, and this is Scratch, bringing you marketing lessons from the leading brands and brains rewriting the rulebook from scratch for the world of today.
Hey everyone, a high energy and fascinating conversation today with Jake Karls, who is the co-founder and chief Rainmaker of Midday Squares. They are a brand that is completely rewriting the playbook on how to build a food CPG company. Maybe you've come across them, maybe you haven't, but I definitely would recommend listening to this conversation. I mean, I was going to say if you're in CPG, but to be honest, really if you're in any category, because the thing that they are doing so well is understanding how to earn the attention of their audience. We talk a lot about the media company model. They are taking this to the next level, and they have actually created a reality TV show around building their business that has driven almost 100 million organic views and is powering 50% year-on-year growth with a couple really exciting new retail distribution partnerships that Jake talks about. And actually, their approach drove their listing within Costco recently. So I love this conversation. I love the philosophy of really understanding what it takes to earn attention, to put out content that is going to earn attention in today's landscape. We really focus on this idea of being unapologetically authentic, which really builds the base for any successful challenger brand. It certainly seems that way to me. So I think you're going to find something interesting in this. Please do go check out Midday Squares and all the content that they're putting out. This is an amazing success story, and I can't wait to see what they do when they complete their next round of funding and take things to the next level. Jake, thanks so much for joining us. How are things in my city of Montreal?
Oh, it's snowing. It's actually freezing. It was literally like summer a week ago. It was sunny, and now it's back to that cold. But honestly, I do love winter because I love hockey. I love outdoor activities. So,
So on
um,
brand. So on
but,
brand.
but I'm ready for the sunlight. Let's bring the sunlight and let's bring the vitamin D. And no, I'm feeling energized. It's Monday morning where I am. So, well, I'm assuming Monday morning everywhere.
Love it. All right. Well, yeah, it's been a while since I lived in Montreal, but I did love it when I went to McGill back in the day. And it's getting about to that time of the year, right around the end of March, early April, where the temperature finally gets above zero and people start wearing shorts. Not even kidding, or at least I did when I was in college. So
I wear shorts in the winter, Eric. I'm not wearing. I'm wearing jeans right now because I have something later that I need to go to. But all the time I wear shorts. Doesn't matter if it's -20, 5 degrees. It doesn't make a difference because I find that you need that energy, that momentum, and that like positive sunlight feel, like as if you're on the beach. And people think I'm out of my mind. They're like, something's wrong with you.
well, that is a fun anecdote to kick us off. So before we start talking about everything that you're doing with Midday Squares, the question that we ask all of our guests, what is one challenger brand that you're particularly passionate about right now and why?
I think a challenger brand, in my opinion, that I'm super fired up about is I really enjoy watching Liquid Death. They become more of a larger scale business now, but they still have a challenger mentality. And what they do is just their marketing is aggressively and unapologetic for them, and that inspires my business to be more and more unapologetic. And I think seeing that it can work at scale is really fascinating. And yeah, I think the challenger brands going forward in the next decade or 20 years is going to be who's going to be the most authentic and who's going to be the best storytellers, because attention, in my opinion, is probably the most valuable asset, whether you're a challenger brand or an incumbent. And yeah, so any challenger brand out there, just try to grab attention, become unique in the way you grab people's attention, because it's something that no one can copy how you make people feel. They're not able to. So really lean into that.
Well, that philosophy, that religion of attention being the most valuable commodity certainly rings true for me, coming from the school or the church of Gary Vaynerchuk back in the day, which I'm sure is a model that you've looked at and maybe has helped inspired some of what you're doing at Midday Squares. But I love that. And I wish I could remember the episode. Maybe in post production we can drop that in here or into the show notes. But we did talk to another guest who talked about this term and this attitude of being unapologetic. And we talk a lot about authenticity, and I think that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but there really is something different, at least to me, the connotation when you say unapologetic. It takes it a step further. And actually, if you look at many of the successful challenger brands, especially in the world of consumer packaged goods and retail, they are unapologetic. They're not just authentic, but they really take it a step further. And clearly that's something that has worked well for you all at Midday Squares and Liquid Death, which of course is a challenger brand that a lot of people are talking about. So let's hear a little bit more about Midday Squares. So for folks that might not have heard of you, although I mentioned before we pressed record that I told the team that we were having this interview, and you've got some fans here at Rival already. So you've made it across the ocean to the UK and down to Cape Town, South Africa. But for anybody who hasn't heard of Midday Squares, can you give us an overview on what the business is, what the product is, and kind of the current state of marketing for you as well?
Yeah, I think first of all, thank you to the fans. If they listen to this after, appreciate you guys so much. But I think for Midday Squares, what we wanted to do from the beginning, my sister, my brother-in-law, and I, because we started this together as a family, is build the next biggest afternoon chocolate snacking business in the better for you category. I know it sounds big, it sounds buzzwords and all that stuff, but we're really focused on becoming that brand that you eat at 2 p.m. and it gets you through your afternoon. And that's all you think about when you think about snacking in the afternoon. And that's a big task. When we started this, everyone said that we're crazy. In August of 2018, they're like, You're out of your mind. It's too hard. The world doesn't need another chocolate bar or a protein bar or any of that stuff." And for us, what we said was, why don't we build a snack that keeps people full? It's indulgence, it's functional, and it's a fun brand, a brand that makes you feel something, that actually makes you want to be part of what we're doing, a movement, a cult, a community. And I say cult with respect to just something that people are, gravitate towards and want to be part of. And what we did was we launched this in our condo kitchen, hand making these bars every day, with the idea that we'll build the next biggest chocolate snacking business. And we started filming everything since day one. And this is what's unique about our approach to it, I guess, communication with our consumers. And we basically started filming and documenting like a reality show and showing you as a consumer the good, the bad, the ugly. And that was the way that we were going to stand out from the crowd. Because if we talked about it being a better for you chocolate bar that had protein, had a little bit of fiber, a little bit of protein, and tasted good, and it's got clean ingredients, it would bore you as a consumer, or at least most consumers. So what we decided to do was entertain in a very different way by showing drama, showing unapologeticness, which we talked about a little earlier, to make people feel something, evoke an emotion. And what that did was it got people curious. It's like, who are these crazy people showing therapy sessions, breakdowns, raising capital, hiring, firing, you name it, everything that's to do with a business or building a business, we showed it like a glass door. And what that did was it made consumers, when they went to the grocery stores or the supermarkets, they felt like they were buying from friends. And I always say this, buying from friends or family or a neighbor. They went and searched with antennas for our product. And that allowed us to have minimal success and create compounded effect of community. And yeah, we've stayed true to that to date. And we have terabytes on terabytes and terabytes of content of almost every moment that has happened in this business. Because one day we want to show a documentary of whether we built $1 billion business or we crashed completely and failed, but you could at least see everything that happened in real time. And I think that's very unique from a marketing perspective. And yeah, we're proud of it. It's taken over our lives, but it's something that's it's made Midday Squares unique other than just the product.
And how do you think about, because this, media first or media company model is certainly something that I subscribe to, and we're doing here at Rival in a different way, although I will say at the beginning, we did have an idea to just kind of, not that we're the first ones to come up with it, but to kind of document the journey of starting a consultancy. We ended up not doing it. I kind of wish that we had. And we might come back to it at some point, even though we won't have kind of that 0 to 1 stage. But this media company model, for anybody who listens to this podcast, is something that I subscribe to. This whole idea of the job of marketing is to tell a story, to change perception and behavior, to grow a business, but actually you need people's attention in order to tell them a story. And if you think more like a media company, what kind of content is going to be interesting, entertaining, differentiated enough that it's going to earn attention, that's actually the first job to be done. And what I think is interesting about what you've done, and I'd love to have you elaborate on a little bit, is just the terminology and the mindset of it being a reality show. This is not content marketing. Sometimes the media company model gets butted up against content marketing, which is still taking a product-centric and kind of short-term commercial-centric approach to how can I create content around what I want people to do for me. You all are at the complete opposite end of the spectrum in my mind. You're not even, and I'd love for you to expand on if this is like a rule or you just kind of avoid it where you can. You're not even including the product in the content that you're doing. It's a reality show about building the business. So I guess maybe where I'd love to start with that is, how is that sausage made? Do you, Gary, one of his philosophies was just think like a journalist, just document everything that you're doing. It sounds like that's part of your approach. But at this point, do you have like a monthly editorial meeting? Do you have a weekly status where you talk about what you want to document? In this content factory that you've built, how does the assembly line actually function?
So I love it. And I think that you nailed it. We still talk about the product, but probably 15% of the time. 85% is how we build the business, the drama that comes from it, or the success that comes from it. And all we think about when we're creating content is, does it evoke an emotion, yes or no? And if it doesn't, then we cannot post the content. Number two is, do we even enjoy watching it or looking at it or listening to it? And if we don't, then it doesn't go up either. And we used to post everything every day, nonstop, on stories, on Instagram stories, literally every day. You'd see many, many stories of the day-to-day of how the business looked. Then we changed the strategy because some people that we started to acquire as customers were coming new. They were coming just now, not from the beginning stories. They didn't know who we were. So now we actually just talk about bigger things that happen within the business. So we document everything as if we're doing a documentary, but then we put the B-roll into a bigger style of a campaign video that's more about like, okay, we just had a trade show, and our booth at the trade show, we had no budget because we're in a cocoa crisis, which is the raw materials going crazy, and this is affecting our entire business. So we told a story just about the trade show booth, but it talked about the entire crisis we're going through as for the last 6 months and why we made the booth the way we did. And what it does is it creates this, like, again, human connection with people. That's not just about the origin story or like the characters of the origin. It's actually about like just evoking an emotion with really cool B-roll to show you what's happening. And, we're short staffed right now. We're about to continue to build our media team over the next year. But basically how they do it is they look at what's big or what's going on in the company. And then they say, okay, well, we have a big financing event that's going to happen in April. Let's start documenting from now till April all the content that is with the investor meetings, with the due diligence, with the legal teams, with the rejections, and let's put together the story so that when we do release it at the end of April, we have all of the content that happened throughout the time of getting to this moment, and then we share the story of what we want to tell in terms of the financing. Maybe it's getting the money, maybe it's not getting it, maybe it's a pivot. And that way we're relating to human nature, man. Like, that's the whole critical part, is like, it's not about selling you the chocolate bar, because if I sold you the chocolate bar, you wouldn't pay attention to us. You wouldn't care. But if I show you moments of David versus Goliath or ups and downs, you're like, oh, wait, I want to know more about this. I'm so curious. And then when you go to the store, you don't just see a chocolate bar. You see people you care about or a brand that means something to you. So maybe you buy it, maybe you tell people about it. Like, but I'm turning you into a fan rather than just that customer. And Eric, I think you nailed it before, is the word unapologetic or authenticity, which again is the core of this entire marketing strategy, is being thrown around a lot. And it's very surface level that's happening in terms of marketing with people using this idea of authenticity. I think authenticity comes when you actually lean into the uncomfortable, when you actually go to the edge, the gray area, and come back. And everything other than that is just it's a boxed authenticity. And that boxed authenticity does the same thing as the box originally. If you want authenticity to strike, it needs to be truly real, and it needs to have the what do you call it? The not the serendipity, but the pureness of what authenticity is. And that means making an average decision, which a lot of people aren't willing to make.
Hey everyone, just another quick interruption. If you're listening to this podcast and you're not already part of our AMP community on WhatsApp, Would love for you to get involved. So, AMP is a community that we started at the beginning of the business, really, just to kind of bring together some of the interesting people that we were talking to, the marketers that we were coming across, many of whom have been on this show as well. And so now AMP is about 300 senior marketers from around the world, from various categories, different stages, challengers, incumbents. And it's really a place where people can share questions, can share resources, can make new connections, can use folks as sounding boards. And for those that are in it, you know, it is a very vibrant community. It's really taken on a life of its own, which is amazing. So if you're listening to this and you want to get involved, please go to our website, wearerival.com. There you can find the application form or reach out to me or someone at Rival directly. Thanks so much.
One of the things that you said that I want to come back to that I think is really important to this, whether you thought about it consciously or not, is that you are the David in an industry of Goliaths, right? If you had tried to take the same incumbent category playbook, you'd be a drop in an ocean to retailers, to the consumer market. So in a way, what has worked, whether you necessarily needed to or not, like maybe there were other ways to try to get the attention that you have, but what has worked with this model is that it is so different from what the Goliaths are doing, that it allows you, we talk a lot, the term challenger brand, the connotation is a small business, a startup, a disruptor within a category. But really what it comes down to is engineering outsized impact with the marketing investments that you made. And that's something that you all have done in spades. Like I'm sure there are some of the big chocolate, businesses in the world right now that are watching what you're doing and wondering if they can do something similar. Does this kind of like leverage, as it were, of the marketing investments, how much does that factor in terms of you being a David in an industry of Goliaths?
Well, I think, look, the Goliaths of our industry, when you look at them, they've done some phenomenal things. And what I mean by that is they more have done phenomenal things on infrastructure. They've created amazing infrastructure that we're striving to get towards one day. And we see how hard it is to build from a distribution standpoint, from a manufacturing capability standpoint, from an actual merchandising and all that stuff, right? But it took 70 years for a lot of these, or 80 years. So for us, the one thing that we could separate ourselves is we're not going to beat them at that game necessarily, but what we can do that's different at least, and play our own game is, you're right, build fans, build community for today, because community today is not necessarily the same thing as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And the reason why is because we have different ways of communicating, social media, you have the internet. It's not necessarily billboards, TV ads, and all that stuff. It's a new game, right? So I think that for us, the way we win, our own game is we develop community, we build loyalty, we build fandom, not just acquisition of a customer, but turn them into something emotional, because human beings connect through each other through, yes, stories, but through emotion. It's all through emotions. They bond, it's based on human nature. We want belonging, we want feeling, we want to be part of. And I think what we can do really well is we can move very quickly and take the risks to create that feeling of belonging or create that emotion, which would take the incumbent brands a lot longer to just get that pass from the bureaucracy standpoint of just saying, hey, can we do this strategy? No, we need XYZ committee to accept that. We don't have that at Midday Squares. And maybe one day we will. I don't know. I hope not. But at the end of the day, what we can do really well is, we don't like a story, it doesn't go out. If we have a huge moment, we can decide in the snap of a finger if we're gonna lean into this bold moment and we're gonna take the risk, and we're okay with what happens if we fail or something goes wrong, right? And that allows us to create this idea of the adrenaline. It helps us get attention. It helps us create that emotion. And I think the larger brands will have a lot harder time to do that. And that's an asset for any challenger brand today. We're all in the same level playing field for the first time in history in terms of marketing, because it's not about how much you spend anymore, Eric. It's about how much are you able to get the attention of the consumer? How much can you earn the privilege for the consumer to want to engage with you and communicate with you? And that's not about money. That's about creativity. That's about emotional connection. That's about being a great storyteller, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think I've always thought speed in itself, you have to do the right thing with it. But in itself, it's one of the biggest advantages that challengers tend to have over incumbents. Every once in a while, you get an incumbent that's able to move quickly, but by definition of scale, it just gets a lot harder to do it, and that's where they leave a lot of opportunity on the table.
And I
So
think
when
it
it,
would be cool to see the incumbents do it, and some incumbents are changing, and you see it, and it's actually super cool because these brands have done, like I said, so much good. Like they employ so many people around the world. Like they create so many things, and like it's just it's It's how do you move a big ship? How do you move it quick is the big question. Is whoever can solve that is going to be a hero, and the brand that does do it is going to be the hero forever. Like, they'll be able to stay at the top forever and ever and ever, and, and move with times, because moving with times is hard. It really is. You gotta be able to, like you said, quick and understand and move and take risks, and it's just not easy for everybody.
So if we take an example of an opportunity or a moment that you all turned into content that helped to drive the growth of your business, like the whole model kind of come to life. Let's maybe take the Costco one recently, and you can give the announcement of kind of what happened and the story of what happened, but I've watched the videos and they're pretty great. So how does that actually work from the moment of inception? You see something, you decide you want to make content about it. What does the team look like that makes that content, the approval process? You mentioned that already of being, you can make that decision really quickly. I'm assuming, looking at the content that you do, that editing is a big investment that you made, the post-production after capturing the content, particularly when you have terabytes of data and you need to stitch that together into something that's short and snappy and effective. So let's use the Costco example. How does that actually happen?
So yeah, so Costco Canada, we're based in Montreal, right? So Costco Canada was a huge goal of ours, and it's a critical partner to be with as you grow your business. And when we originally pitched to Costco years ago, we're talking like 3 years ago, maybe. We were told no, we're not yet or not now, and it just kept on being told. And we had two options, feel bad and feel like okay, or get back up and do something creative and keep fighting. And that's what we did. And we basically begged Costco more or less to at least give us a chance. And they're very protective and they're very they love their members, and they wanna do what's best for their members and give members the most value that they can. I respect that. The Costco model is fascinating. What a business it is. But Midday Squares seem to not fit at the time into that model because it's a new type of product, it's a new category, it's a bit of a risk, it's not fully scaled up yet, all these things, right? And I'll never forget, we had, a moment where we just said, like, "Let us prove to you that we can sell it. What can we do to prove to you that it will work with your members, that your members want this product?" And they told us, "Well, there's a roadshow, right? And a roadshow is not something, you can just sign up for like this. You still have to get approval. You have to do all these things." And the roadshow is basically you go out there and you sample in Canada. I think it's for 11 or 12 days. I can't remember the exact day, in one warehouse. So you choose one warehouse and you sample there. And basically you bring product, you set up a booth. It's an experiential thing to a certain extent. And the members get to try the product for free. And then they can buy it on the spot at the price point that you and Costco Roadshow's team agree. So we said, after being rejected all this time, let us just do this roadshow. Let us prove to you that we could break a record. Let's show you that we can win so big that you're gonna wanna take us so badly because your members will want it. So we committed to 3 or 4 road shows, I can't remember the exact amount, and we did them in different cities, and we ended up breaking the record. The decade-old record of amount of sales per road show, and everyone does road shows, by the way, a lot of people do them. And we did that by creating a moment and gamifying it and allowing our community to come and support and be part of this huge moment. So we told the story from the beginning that we worked so hard to get this roadshow. So again, creating this idea of build up, right? And then once we got there, we gamified it by showing the daily amount that we were hitting to our goal. So come be part of this moment. Come feel the excitement. And when we were there, we weren't just sampling product. We were screaming, dancing, yelling, making it an absolute fun experience, a party more or less within the Costco. And then slowly people started talking about, "Did you see this? Did you see that?" And next thing you know, we passed our goal, passed the goal the next day. And it's gamified, right? So you're watching this team, you're cheering them on, even if you don't know us, because you want us to win, because it's so humanized. And then local press started covering it. And the next thing you know, we broke the record. And we ended up getting into Costco. And now we're crushing Costco Canada. It's been an amazing experience, but this is like a 3.5 year process, right? And when we created this content, like you asked, is so we knew we had a big moment, and then we reverse engineered what can we do to create something special or memorable with this new experience. So my sister is actually the creative director of our company. She leads the actual storytelling component. What is going to be the story from this moment? And she comes up with these ideas, and then her and our content creator James, who basically captures and edits the content. We'll work with her on scripts. We'll work with her on the type of content we need to get to tell the story, the B-roll, and then James will go after and edit the entire process. and then come out with obviously like drafts. It's not just one hit, let's go. No, they go through multiple drafts till this piece of content comes out. And as we're doing that, we will share stories on Instagram, which are more raw, unfiltered, of everything that's going on in live time. So you have a big campaign or two big campaign videos that come out summarizing the experience or a bold thing that happened within the experience. And then during, you could see the everyday thing that's happening because you're already capturing it, right? So you already have the content being captured. We just share it in bites. Look at this. Look at this. This is all our, look who came to visit us, etc. And that's the process of what happened in Costco, and it worked because it got, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of organic views, organic, and actually led to sales, like legitimate sales. And, yeah, so once you see that, you can't unsee it as a business. And it's like, how do you take that and apply it to everything? Almost everything. I'm not saying gamifying it, but how do you take a moment and then just backtrack what you want from it and to tell a story of that and then keep people engaged because they're cheering you on. They're part of what you're doing. So the story you're telling has them within the story, whether they see it or not.
Hey everyone, I wanted to quickly jump in and ask a question that I'm sure all of you have thought of. What does the future of the CMO role actually look like? Is it evolving? Is it going extinct? Like a lot of businesses seem to think it is. We have put out our very first documentary as Rival titled The Future of the CMO. You can check it out via the link in the show notes below. We have interviewed some of the biggest and brightest minds in the marketing industry to understand what the future of this role actually looks like. Would love for you to check it out. Would love to hear what you think. Link in the show notes below. So let's talk a little bit about, if we broaden the aperture a little bit, both in terms of what marketing looks like right now, but also how you're thinking about marketing as you scale. You mentioned that as you grow within the category, there are kind of different priorities or different milestones that you need to hit commercially, but also from a marketing perspective. So right now, obviously the reality show, the media company, the documentary approach is the main focus. What else are you doing either to support that or to complement that with the rest of your marketing mix? And then maybe let's come back and talk about what the next stage is going to look like.
So yeah, 100%. So it's not just organic content and media first approach in terms of just building Midday Squares in Canada, the United States, and selling through. No, we work with a lot of creators. So we find creators that, have very loyal bases, and we work with them to create content both for D2C. So for our online business to talk about like a promo code, for example, like talk about the product and promote it like a typical promo code. But the second angle is we actually have them go into retailers and our partners and show where the product is in the store. So they would talk about the product, let's say for a month before, 2 months before, consistently, like once every 2 weeks. So the second part would be that they go to the retailer and they actually show their like grocery haul, but they show where their midday square snack is, their favorite chocolate snack, blah, blah, blah. And what that does is it guides their community to find it in stores that we need to push more revenue. So let's say it's, for example, Whole Foods or Target. We will guide these creators to go to these stores and promote the content. The second is we have a meta strategy of paid ads, obviously. And that is basically a mix of storytelling similar to our reality style to get people curious. So they watch it like kind of like a Netflix. They see it and they're feeling like, what is this drama? And then we get them into our vortex, like in spiral. They go through all our content, like, oh, I want to know more about this company. But the second part of it is typical, what problem are we solving? So the typical ad where you see, okay, we're an afternoon snack to make your afternoons better by giving you indulgence and function. You ever get tired in your afternoon, you need to pick me up. Like these things are more problem solving, things that hit on points where they don't even know anything about Midday Squares. They just want something to solve their problem, right? And the third part is obviously we do trade shows. We like trade shows, like the actual bars, we call it bars to bellies. Or squares to bellies. That gets people to try the product because we believe we have product market fit. And when people try it, they actually stay a lot longer. So we believe the story will bring people in, but when they eat the product, it actually keeps them for a long period of time because it fits their lifestyle and there's that product market fit angle. So yeah, that's our current strategy.
Cool. And then when we talk about kind of the next level, whatever that looks like, obviously you've had a lot of success early on, you're growing, hit some milestones. But if we talk about the scale that you want to be at a certain point, do you see that marketing mix evolving, or what does the next level look like in terms of the marketing playbook for Midday Squares?
So we definitely feel like it can evolve into way bigger things. For example, we are going to invest in the next year. We're about to do a fundraise. So we're about to invest in our entire media team. So we're going to build out the content creation angle, like the actual creator, the editors, the videographers, having someone that understands pop culture, just be in terms of trend and all that stuff, understanding to bring that in. So we're going to build out the team, and what we're going to focus on is crazy storytelling. We're going to add into YouTube, the mix to YouTube, to have longer format and actually, like, more or less vlogs the way we think vlogging should be. But, like, for example, I go do a ground game. So a ground game that I think a lot of people aren't willing to do as a brand because it's expensive and it takes time and it takes a certain skill set. So I travel around to Canada, and the United States, to go travel to colleges, and I basically give courses or guest lecturing on entrepreneurship or marketing. But I use Midday Squares as the case study. But a lot of the time, it talks about storytelling, authenticity, being yourself. So I talk about more human nature things, and I get the students really amped up. I fire them up in a very interesting way. I get them dancing. I do wild things in the presentation. It's like I treat it like a performance, like an artist would do. And what I do is I tour around. Now, I'm doing it physically and I'm touching, let's say, 50 to 100 people per class, but I'm doing a lot of them, but I'm turning them into super fans really quickly because I have an hour of their time. An hour of attention is critical to making someone feel something if you're able to. So I do that, but what we would do is take that and now create an entire media component behind it by basically having like a tour bus where it goes college to college, but instead of just, throwing parties and all this stuff, it's promoting entrepreneurship, promoting, the idea of being unapologetic and like all these things while building a business and giving a ton of free squares. But you make a storyline about going on tour, like, and we tell that story on YouTube. We tell it in a very professional media component of what it looks like to go on tour. And, like, there's so many angles that can be told within that. So we're really moving into amplifying the voice by telling more stories, having more resources to tell it, but also at the same time getting better at traditional marketing in terms of, like, okay, what do we do in store that can drive sales? Is it demoing? Is it proper promo planning? Is it, merchandising, end caps? Like, there's still that component that sounds boring, but actually is still effective, that we need to do as we supplement the crazy media side of the business. So media first, but traditional is going to come a lot more into effect as we scale.
So the media company model is going to be the core, but you're going to have to start playing a little bit of the industry incumbent game as you
Mhm.
grow, especially on
We
the
ha
retail side.
we ha
Yeah.
we have to, because our business is 70% retail, 30% D2C, and as we go, it's probably gonna be 80/20, 80% retail, 20% D2C. So we need to be able to dominate the people that aren't on social media. If you look at North America, there's between Canada and the US, there's maybe what, close to 400 million people. Not everyone's on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, all the time. Some people actually don't go on these platforms or go on them rarely. So how do we engage them? It's a different strategy. It's how do we get them trying the product without them seeing us on this loud side of, our media strategy. We need to figure out what taps into that customer and acquires that customer.
So you mentioned LinkedIn briefly there, and I know that was something that you brought up in our prep call as something that you're particularly passionate about. So why are you particularly passionate about LinkedIn, and what do you think people should be doing differently with it as a platform?
Yeah, LinkedIn to me is like, okay, everyone says it's corporate, it's boring, and I agree. Like, that's what my first perception was when I joined LinkedIn. I was like, this is the opposite of someone that's crazy and wild and creative and fun. Until I started posting on it, and I was like, I'm just going to document my personal journey of building a business, but I'm going to show some unapologeticness, like we discussed, and some flares, some wildness. And as I did that, it started to go more viral. 10 views, 20 views, 1,000 views per post, 20,000 views organically, 100,000, 200,000. And I was like, oh my God, this platform's a machine. And I realized that it's not just an end consumer on there, but you have everybody in your industry that can help you. So service providers, you have investors, you have journalists, you have people in retail. So I start to use this as a way to communicate our message directly to people in the industry. And we've raised money through LinkedIn. We've acquired new retail partners through it. We've gotten in the press because of it. So I'd say that because people are so focused on this platform of, like, paying attention in terms of business mindset, the moment you give them value or something a little different that still has a business component to it, you stand out like a sore thumb. And that's a very powerful tool to get to message to certain types of people. And it works. And our business now does it. We do it from a personal standpoint, not from the business standpoint, like Midday Squares. We have my partners and my team post content. on their personal, platforms, their personal profiles, because that's more effective, in my opinion, on LinkedIn.
Hey everyone, just want to take a quick minute because we've actually heard from many of you that you want to get a better understanding of what it is that we actually do here at Rival. You know us for the content, obviously you're listening to Scratch right now, but everything else that we put out, the events, the community, but actually our core business, just so you know, we are a marketing consultancy for challenger brands. We partner with brands big and small to gain category share with a challenger approach. We develop and execute strategies and campaigns across 4 main areas of the marketing function: brand strategy, creative and production, paid media planning and buying, and customer data and MarTech. And then, of course, as you know, the mission that's wrapped around Rival is to understand and share our learnings about what drives the growth of successful challenger brands. That's it. Sorry for the interruption. I'll let you get back to the show.
All right. I got some questions for you that were in the brief. So if you're happy to roll with me, let's see how this goes. I get obviously a lot of creative energy from you. And I think you said that even explicitly. That's a huge part of what has created the success that you've had with the media company approach and all that. Where does data and analytics fit into this model for you? Are you looking at what's working, what's not working? I know a lot of the industry and even us at Rival now, we're doing a lot of testing to then figure out what the big creative ideas should be. What does the kind of quant math side of the art creative half look like?
So we're getting there. We're learning. We're trying to apply a more data-driven approach to that. For the past, it's been obviously as we create in terms of capturing and organizing and hitting, how much content we want to hit. We use the data side and organization to that, and system. But I think from an actual like what works and what doesn't work in terms of like content on the organic side, we're doing more of a qualitative approach right now to feel like, can we evoke emotions? Does it do anything? What's the engagement in terms of how people interact? Not amount of views or amount of likes, but how many people, what are they reacting to? Are they sharing it? Are they telling us about it? Are they writing deep comments? So we look at it more like that rather than, hey, this went viral. Why did it go viral? But it's also because we're short resourced on that squad that we haven't been able to build that out. But that being said, everything else from like ads and creators that we work with on the paid side, everything's data driven. The whole thing is data driven. It's all basically a game of this works, this doesn't work, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And my partner, Nick, my brother-in-law, he's a software engineer by trade. So he's actually a data first person rather than a media first person when you think about it. So he's applying that side to that performance marketing, but the organic is still free flowing in terms of creative and art, let's call it. But we would like to marry those two as time goes on.
I think that's what it is. That's what it is at the end of the day, right? Like there's not one way to do it for every Midday Squares that has been, let's say, creatively led in the success that you've had as a brand. There are plenty of others that have been more data led. But I think one, it's about the self-awareness to know who you are as a business and what to prioritize, but also where you need to invest to complement. Because at the end of the day, it's really about how you bring both of those things together.
100%.
Another question that I wanted to ask you is, you talk about Midday Squares and clearly people listening or people who have come across your content will know. You talk about it being creative. You talk about it being wild. You talk about it being fun. You mentioned Liquid Death earlier. There are many examples of challenger brands that have that type of personality that seems to lend itself well to this type of approach. Do you think that is a requisite for this model working, or for brands that do not have those values that maybe show up in a bit of a different way? Like I'm just thinking about my version of a guest lecture at a university would not be running around and getting people dancing, right? So for brands that have a different personality, let's say, do you think this model still works, and how would you advise them to approach it differently, if at all?
I get this question a lot: is do you have to be front facing, or do you have to be wild and crazy to create let's call it a challenger brand? I think no. I think the answer is absolutely not, actually, because I think that all that matters is, can people feel your authenticity of your brand or you as an individual? Meaning like, okay, for me, when I dance my shirt off and do crazy stuff, yeah, at first it looks gimmicky. And then second, when they see it again and again and again, they're like, oh, wow, this is actually real. And they start to feel the energy and start to appreciate it. Now, do I think everyone needs to do that? That wouldn't make sense. It's not authentic to people, right? That's cringe for a lot of people. What I would say is, if you're building something, just lean into whatever you can offer an authentic energy from your brand, the way that you communicate to your base. So if it's like a sports drink, let's call it, company, I'm not saying you have to go do crazy things like Red Bull does, but what you could do is, if you are a sports performance drink and it's all about performance, talk about the stories of performance that's worked for some of the athletes or the individuals that are drinking your product. Like I look at Nike and, I have no affiliation with them, but I love what they do. They tell the stories, in my opinion, of people persevering, achieving greatness, coming back. So you associate, in my opinion, the shoe with that greatness. So look, they're not out there like I am, but they're out there in their own way. That's the stories, and obviously they're a larger brand. But they once weren't a larger brand; they were a challenger, and so I think it applies everywhere. That you just need to find you. You need to find what the vision of XYZ company is, and make sure that people can live, breathe, and feel that as you communicate with them.
Unapologetic authenticity,
Yes.
which is a
Yeah.
mouthful, but it is really the root of a lot of what we're talking about here. All right, I have one more kind of brief question before we get into the lightning round. So if I'm listening to this and I'm a brand manager at Unilever, at Procter and Gamble, at Mondelez, at PepsiCo, and I subscribe to all this, I'm like, yes, this is what modern marketing should look like. But to your point earlier, I'm hamstrung by the bureaucracy and the slowness of being within an oil tanker, but trying to do
Yep.
all this speedboat stuff. Any advice about how someone in a bigger business can still implement this model? Or is it really the way that you need to do it, to your point of identifying something, being able to do it quickly, having that feel for what the community is that you might not have at a big brand? Is this type of thing only a fit for the challengers as opposed to the incumbents?
So I would say that this is my best advice to them. Number one, a lot of these incumbent brands built legacy style products. Like if you think about like Mondelez, like Oreo, Legend, like what a brand. Like it's a crazy brand, but it's been around for so long, right? But what would they do today what can they do today? I think small steps. So I think the idea of looking at compound effect in not an investment way, but in a way of growing their depth of communication with the consumer is, I would say, do little things every day. If you're a brand marketer for these companies, is take a little step instead of a big one. Don't pitch this huge idea of unapologeticness for what XYZ company represents. No, that's gonna get a lot of pushback or a lot of risk analysis. But if you take a little step and you do like a little one every day, small, 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 eventually that compounds into something massive over the year or over 2 years. The compound goes like this. And I think that that's the best chance you have to enact ideas, to inspire ideas, inspire new concepts while remaining authentic to the brand itself. But if you go big, you're gonna get blocked, just in my opinion, because I see even with we're a small business, when we go way too big, it still gets shut down because it has a risk analysis. But if I go smaller, there's more open-mindedness, there's more conversation, there's less ego involved in terms of pushback. So I think that that's the secret is start very, very small by little baby steps and let that compound into adult steps one day down the line. But you got to be patient and you got to continuously be willing to execute with enthusiasm.
So, Jake, before I let you go, got a few lightning round questions. So, just quick one hit answers from you. What is the first marketing job that you've ever had?
Fitness company.
What'd you do there?
I owned it, but I was head of marketing and it was basically outdoor boot camps. And I used Snapchat and loud music to get people excited to want to try the boot camp.
Nice. All right. So, you had a little experience before going into Midday Squares.
Yes.
What is the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
Block out all the noise of life. People that love you and care about you might not understand what you see, and you got to be very careful what you get inside your system. So keep a narrow view until you're ready to open up and listen to everything else.
Love that. What's the best brand campaign you've seen recently?
Wow, that's a hard question. Um, I saw I saw Patagonia. I don't know how long ago this was, but I saw Patagonia. It just popped up on my screen recently, but they did an anti-consumerism ad that was basically like called "Don't buy this jacket," and the idea was basically
Yeah.
it was radical authenticity. I guess their mission is something to do with environmental waste, and they're basically saying, if you don't need it, don't buy it, right? So I think that what that does to the consumer, in my opinion, is create this type of authenticity, saying that like, you could trust us as a company, whether they wanted that or not, but that's kind of what it tells you. And I think that that's brilliant for them, for that kind of business.
And last question, what is one thing people should do differently after listening to this episode?
Be unapologetically yourself every day. Make unaverage decisions and you'll have an unaverage outcome. If you make average decisions, you're going to have an average outcome, and nothing great was average in life. So you might as well make the unaverage decision and lean into yourself.
Great. Bonus question. When are you coming to the
Yeah.
UK?
Swear to God, I'm coming. I booked September 13th to 19th. Let's get together if you're there.
All right, let's do it. Jake, thank you so much. Been a great conversation. Really appreciate you making the time. Congrats on all the success and good luck in the future. We'll be rooting for you guys.
Appreciate you. Woo!
Scratch is a production of Rival. We are a growth consultancy that builds challenger brands, strategies, and capabilities to disrupt categories. If you want to learn more about us, check out wearerival.com. If you want to connect with me, email me at eric@wearerival.com or find me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, share with anyone you think might enjoy it, and leave us a review. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.